Congressman from Texas, Mac Thornberry. He's vice chairman of the House Armed Services Committee, just came out of that briefing. And, sir, what did the general tell you?
He said it's a mess. And he went into some detail about the complexities, and you just heard some of them with Barbara Starr's report. The danger of a safe haven for terrorists from which attacks would be launched against us, but also the danger of this broader sectarian war going on through the whole region. There are no easy answers. Did
General Petraeus say there's a real threat by ISIS to the United States homeland?
I don't want to get into quoting him exactly. He needs to speak for himself. There's no question there's a real threat to the U.S. homeland because a number of people with European and American passports have gone to Syria to fight there, and it will be relatively easy for them to come to Europe and to the United States, and that's different from the way it used to be. It's different from the way it was in Afghanistan.
Right. Well, when you talk about these people, that they would have U.S. passports. But this brings me to the crucial question here, which is, you know, I'm not surprised you just had that concern, because you have said recently you're concerned that terrorists, these terrorists are going to attack the United States. So given that you see a threat to the U.S. homeland, are you then willing to say that the United States needs to put boots on the ground, as many Americans as it takes, to stop ISIS before there is a terrorist attack in this country?
No, because there's a tremendous cost to that, too. And so if we, the United States, are going to do something militarily, the question is, what can we do that would be effective and also not contribute to this sectarian civil war? So, in other words, you may think you're helping on one hand and you make the other problem even worse. That's part of the reason this is so complex, is there is not a clear answer even to protect U.S. national security interests here.
So I want to ask you about something else going on in your own caucus. The House Speaker, of course, is getting a lot of coverage for this tonight, considering suing the president over his alleged abuse of executive powers and executive orders. And I just wanted to play what John Boehner said.
Are you planning to initiate a lawsuit against the Obama administration and President Obama over his use of executive action?
I am.
Do you support John Boehner in that, sir?
Yes, we have to do something to prevent the president from just enforcing the laws that he wants to and ignoring the laws he does not want to enforce. And by the way, there's a connection back to Iraq for a second, because if the president wants to take military action in Iraq and Syria, under what authority would he do so? He couldn't do it under the old authorization to use force against Iraq. That was for the Saddam Hussein regime. So not only does this president seem to think he can bomb anybody in the world he chooses to without authorization from Congress, he's picking which domestic
Syria, where he came to get your authorization, right? But you voted. You said you were going to vote. Well, you were against that at the time. But he said he was going to bomb. You guys got upset, and he said he was going to come to you to vote.
No, he didn't. You know, remember, he backed down, and he never came to us.
That's because so many of you guys said you weren't going to vote.
Well, and that's the key. A president, any president, has got to enlist the support of the country for a military action, and that is reflected through their elected representatives in Congress. If a president cannot garner support for taking some action, then probably that action should not occur. And this president has real trouble getting support from either side of the aisle for any course of action in Syria or, in this case, in Iraq.
Now, what I'm curious about on this, and there's so many parallels in the war. Of course, after 9/11, then President Bush signed an executive order giving him the ability to label someone an enemy combatant, which made it easier to kill people overseas. In his first term, here's the numbers. You're no doubt very well aware of this, Congressman. President Obama has signed 147 executive orders. This is in his first term because I wanted to go apples to apples. That is less than any president. We're going all the way back through Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter signed 320, Ronald Reagan 213, George Bush 166, Clinton 200, George W. Bush 173. This president, by that measure, doesn't seem like he's abusing this relative to anybody else, that's for sure.
Well, just to correct one point, remember a few days after 9/11, Congress passed an authorization to use military force against terrorists, and that President Bush then operated based on that authorization. I think you're right. If you just look at numbers of executive orders, then it's not out of line. What is out of line, however, is saying that he would not enforce certain laws, that he would change other laws, like with the health care, and so a president who would pick and choose which laws to enforce presents real dangers to our system of government. The question is, what do we do about it? And a lawsuit for the courts, who are the third branch to resolve these disputes between the other two branches, seems to make sense. I think that's the path the Speaker's headed down.
All right, Congressman, thank you very much for taking the time to join us.